In a peaceful kingdom surrounded by green fields and rivers, there lived a young, beautiful woman named Rosa. She was kind-hearted and full of life, with eyes that sparkled like the stars. She grew up in a small village near the sea, where everyone knew her for her charm and friendliness. But one day, her life changed when she received an unexpected message. The message was from the king himself. Rosa was to marry Prince Adrian, the only son of the king and queen. This was a great honor, and her family was proud. But Rosa felt nervous. She didn't know Prince Adrian well. She had only seen him from afar at festivals, but he had always seemed distant, like he always hides something. Still, Rosa knew she had no choice. She had to accept the king's order. The wedding day arrived, and the entire kingdom gathered to celebrate. The castle was decorated with bright flowers, colorful banners, and music that filled the air. Rosa, dressed in a beautiful white gown, felt a mix of excitement and worry. She had always dreamed of a happy marriage. Rosa walked down the aisle, her heart pounding. Prince Adrian waited for her at the altar, tall and handsome with a serious expression. When he looked at her, his eyes were deep and a bit sad. She thought it was strange, but she didn't question it. The ceremony went on, and soon they were married. The people cheered, but Rosa noticed something unusual. Prince Adrian was silent and almost distant. He held her hand gently, but he barely looked at her. She thought he might be shy or nervous, so she tried to brush it off. After the wedding, Rosa moved into the castle. The rooms were grand, filled with treasures and beautiful decorations. But there was something cool about the place. Prince Adrian was kind to her, but he seemed to avoid her in strange ways. He would often disappear for hours and come back looking pale and tired. One afternoon in the castle, the sun was setting, painting the sky with colors of orange and pink. Rosa sat in the garden admiring the flowers, but she noticed something was off. Adrian walked through the garden, but he seemed lost in thoughts. His shoulders were slumped, and his usually bright eyes looked dim. Adrian, Rosa called, trying to catch his attention. Is everything okay? He turned to her, forcing a smile. Of course, my dear. Just thinking about some royal matters. Rosa could tell he was lying. He looked worried and distant, as if he was somewhere far away. He walked to the edge of the garden and stared out toward the sea, his gaze fixed on the horizon. Do you want to talk about it? She asked gently, stepping closer. Adrian shook his head. No, it's nothing for you to worry about. I have to handle it myself. Rosa felt a pang in her heart. She wanted to help, but he was always so guarded. You don't have to go through this alone, she said softly. I'm here for you. He glanced at her, his expression softening for a moment. But then he looked away again, the sadness returning. I appreciate that, Rosa. You are very kind, but some things are better kept hidden. With that, Adrian turned and walked away, leaving Rosa feeling confused and worried. She watched him go, a sense of unease settling in her stomach. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was seriously wrong, and she felt determined to find out what it was. One night, Rosa couldn't sleep. Her mind was full of questions about her husband, Adrian, and why he acted so strange. Quietly, she got out of bed, wrapped a shawl around herself and decided to follow him. Rosa walked through the quiet castle and slipped outside. She saw Adrian in the distance, down by the shore, standing in the moonlight. She hid behind a rock and watched him carefully, her heart pounding. Adrian walked into the water and something amazing happened. As the waves touched his feet, his legs began to change. His legs turned into a long, shiny tail like a fish's tail, covered in scales that sparkled in the moonlight. Rosa's eye grew wide. Her husband was a marman. She ran back inside in fear and confusion. She woke up feeling heavy with worry. Last night's discovery weighed on her heart, and she couldn't shake the image of Adrian transforming into a marman from her mind. The fear and confusion twisted inside her like a knot. As she got dressed, her hands trembled. How could she look at him the same way again? What if he was angry or scared? What if he didn't want her to know? She felt trapped between her love for him and the secret that hung between them. After breakfast, Rosa wandered through the garden trying to calm her thoughts. She spotted Adrian on the balcony, his back turned to her as he gazed at the ocean. He looked deep in thought, his shoulders tense. Taking a deep breath, she approached him slowly, her heart racing. "Adrian," she called softly, her voice barely above a whisper. He turned around and a smile flickered across his face, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Good morning, Rosa. How are you?" His tone was light, but she could sense a heaviness behind it. "I'm okay," she replied, her stomach churning. "I've been thinking about us." Adrian's expression changed slightly, and he took a step closer. "What do you mean?" Rosa hesitated, searching for the right words. The truth felt like a heavy stone in her throat. "I just feel there's something you're not telling me." And she could see a flicker of fear in his eyes. "I promise there is nothing wrong. I just have a lot on my mind," Adrian answered. She could tell he was hiding something. The nervous energy between them made her heart race. "Adrian, I want you to be honest with me. You can tell me anything." He looked away, gazing back out at the ocean, the waves crashing against the rocks below. "I'm trying, Rosa. It's just complicated," Adrian said. Rosa felt a surge of frustration mixed with concern. "Complicated? It shouldn't be. We love each other. Shouldn't we be able to share problems?" Adrian sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "You don't understand, Rosa. Sometimes there are things in life that are hard to explain, things that can change everything." Rosa's heart sank. What kind of secrets could he be hiding? What if it was something that could drive them apart? "I just wish you would trust me enough to share it," she said softly, her voice trembling. "I want to be there for you." Adrian turned back to her, his eyes searching her face. "I do trust you, but some things are difficult to face. I'm scared you won't accept me once you know the whole truth." Those words hit Rosa hard. She felt a mix of pain and determination. She wanted to scream that she always knew he was different, but instead, she took a step closer, wanting to comfort him. "No matter what it is, I promise I'll try to understand. You mean so much to me." Adrian met her gaze, a flicker of hope appearing in his eyes. "You really mean that?" "Yes," she replied, feeling a strength grow within her. "I love you, Adrian. Just know that I'm here, no matter what." They stood together in the balcony, the ocean breeze swirling around them. although fear still lingered in Rosa's heart. She felt a tiny spark of courage. Whatever the truth was, they would face it together. The days following Rosa's discovery were filled with confusion and doubt. She was certain of what she had seen, but Adrian's reaction made her feel lost. Each time she tried to bring up what she had witnessed, he denied it, leaving her with a deep sense of unease. She knew she couldn't carry this secret alone. So after much thought, Rosa decided to confide in someone who might understand, the king and the queen. One evening, as the palace grew quiet and the last rays of sunlight faded, Rosa approached the king and the queen's private chamber. She took a deep breath, nervously knocking on their door. When they called her in, she entered, her heart pounding. "Your Majesties, I have something important to tell you," she said, her voice trembling. The king and the queen looked at each other, concerned. "What is it, Rosa?" the queen asked gently. Rosa glanced around, gathering her courage. "It's about Adrian," she whispered. "I know this will sound strange, but I've seen him change at night. He becomes something else, a creature of the sea, a marman." The king's eyes narrowed and the queen gasped softly. "Rosa, what are you saying?" the queen asked, barely able to believe her ears. Rosa continued, "I've seen him sneak out at night, going down to the shore. When he steps into the water, he transforms. I know how unbelievable it sounds, but I swear it's true." The king and queen exchanged worried glances, unsure of what to think. Finally, the king said, "If what you say is true, Rosa, we must see it for ourselves tonight. Show us where he goes. We will be there to see if this is truly happening." Relieved but nervous, Rosa agreed. She told them the time when Adrian usually left. Finally, Rosa saw Adrian step into the hallway, moving quietly towards the shore. She watched, convinced he was heading to the sea again. The moment he disappeared from view, Rosa whispered to the king and queen, "Come, this is when he usually goes to the water." They hurried down to the shore, anticipation and tension building, but when they arrived and scanned the waves, there was nothing, no sign of Adrian and no marman in sight. Confused, Rosa looked around desperately, unable to believe he wasn't there. "Where is he?" the king asked, his voice edged with impatience. "I don't understand," Rosa stammered, her face paling. "He should be here. I saw him leave." Disappointed and skeptical, the king and queen suggested they check his room. They returned to the castle and made their way to Adrian's chamber, where they found him lying in bed, eyes closed, breathing calmly as if he's in deep sleep. "Adrian?" the queen called, her voice soft yet uneasy. He stirred, blinking, and sat up. "Mother! Father! Rosa, what's going on?" Rosa's heart sank. She was certain he had left the castle. Yet, here he was, pretending to be sound asleep. She felt a wave of confusion and frustration, unable to understand how he had returned so quickly, or if he had even left at all. "Rosa," the king said with a hint of disapproval, "it seems you may have misunderstood something. Adrian has been in his room the whole time. It's late and you should have rest." The queen looked at Rosa with a mixture of pity and disappointment. "Perhaps you were just worried or mistaken," she said gently. Rosa felt her cheeks flush with embarrassment. "But I know what I saw," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Adrian glanced at her, a faint smirk playing on his lips as he met her gaze. In that moment, she realized he was hiding something. He had somehow tricked her and his parents, and now she felt more lost than ever. As she left the room, Rosa's mind was filled with doubt and confusion. She knew the truth of what she had seen, but now she understood that Adrian was clever. Clever enough to hide his secret even from those closest to him. Determined to find the truth, Rosa resolved to keep watching, waiting for a chance to uncover his secrets once and for all. Many weeks had passed, and Rosa still held Adrian's secrets, but she couldn't keep it any longer. She wanted the family to understand and know the truth. One evening, the family was together enjoying a quiet meal in their private room. Rosa saw a small jug of water on the table. Her heart beat fast. Knowing this was her chance, she pretended to reach for something else and accidentally tipped the jug, spilling water onto Adrian's leg. "Oh, I'm so sorry, Adrian," she gasped, trying to look surprised. Adrian's eyes widened. He jumped up quickly, but the water had already soaked his leg, and he couldn't stop what was coming. His legs shimmered, and in moments they had turned into a beautiful, glistening tail. The room fell silent as everyone stared shocked. The king broke the silence, his voice filled with confusion and disbelief. "Adrian? My son? What is this?" Adrian looked down, unable to meet their eyes. He sat on the floor, his head low. "I didn't want anyone to know. I didn't even want Rosa to know. I thought that if she had found out, she wouldn't love me anymore." The room was silent as Adrian sat on the floor, his shimmering tail exposed for all to see. His confession hung heavy in the air, and his mother, the queen, began to tremble with emotion. The king, overwhelmed by confusion and worry, quickly called for the royal priest. "Send for the priest at once," he ordered. "We need to understand what is behind this mystery." Moments later, the priest entered the room, taking in the scene before him. His eyes moved from the king's concerned face to the queen's tearful one, and finally to Adrian, who sat ashamed with his head bowed. The priest bowed his head quietly, saying a prayer before speaking. "Your Highness," he said to the king, "with your permission, I will consult the oracle to seek the truth of this strange cause." The king nodded. The priest closed his eyes, murmuring words of ancient wisdom. A silence fell over the room, filled only by the sound of the queen's nervous breathing. Her hands shook as the priest's words seemed to pull out memories she had hidden for years. At last, the priest opened his eyes and turned to the queen with a solemn look. "It is you who holds the answer. It was you who once asked for this." The queen's face went pale, and her knees began to tremble. She sank to the floor, unable to hold back the truth any longer. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she remembered when she has desperately wanted a child. "Yes," she whispered, barely able to meet the king's eyes. "It is true. I was afraid I would never give you an heir. I feared you would take a second wife if I could not give you a son. I went to the sea and I prayed for a child, no matter the cost." Her voice cracked as she continued, "But I never knew this would be the price." The king stared at her, a mix of sadness and shock filling his eyes. Adrian looked up, seeing his mother's face filled with regret and sorrow. The priest placed a hand on her shoulder, his expression gentle but firm. Sometimes, desperation leads us down paths we do not understand. The queen sobbed, clutching her son's hand as she whispered, "Adrian, I'm so sorry. I never meant for this burden to fall upon you." After the queen's confession, the king and the queen turned to Rosa, their face filled with regret. The king spoke first, his voice gentle. "Rosa, we owe you an apology. We didn't believe you, and we put you through so much. You've carried this secret alone for too long." Rosa, though relieved, felt a mix of emotions, but she nodded and forgave them, her heart softening as she looked at Adrian. She knew she loved him no matter what he was. The priest then stepped forward. "There is one way to free Adrian from this curse," he explained. "A sacrifice must be made, a rare herb from the forest, given in a ritual to cleanse his bond with the sea." In the days leading up to the ritual, Rosa cared for Adrian, showing him kindness and love. Each evening, she stayed by his side, reassuring him that her love would not change no matter what. Finally, the day of the ritual arrived. The priest performed the ceremony, and with each step, the curse began to lift. When it was done, Adrian felt a warmth wash over him. For the first time, he no longer felt the pull of the sea. The family rejoiced, and Adrian and Rosa's love grew stronger, their story becoming a cherished legend in the kingdom. A few months later, Rosa gave birth to a healthy baby boy, bringing even more joy to their lives. Their story became one of the forgiveness, courage, and a love that had conquered all. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If you enjoyed this story, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a new one. Share this with someone who might need a little inspiration and let me know your thoughts in the comments below.